Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Health is Wealth, Centering Your Well-Being as an Act of Resistance. It is our Wisdom and Wellness series where I interview BIPOC entrepreneurs on their journeys of entrepreneurship so that you can all be inspired by what is possible for yourself and as well as learn about how you can really start to activate and get your own entrepreneurial journey going, and learn some tips and tools to make things happen. Right. So, really quick, I'm super excited to introduce my guests today. We have newly minted here, Dr. Kayzie Sutton. Congratulations on your well, I'll let Dr. Kayzie talk more about her journey. Sara Furr, PhD, and Kat Yalung, wellness coach, embodiment coach. So super excited to have the three of them here joining me today on Wisdom and Wellness for us to talk again about rest and the importance of rest and the importance of really centering your well-being in this very sometimes wild ride of being an entrepreneur. So just as an intro for some of you, maybe are new to me, my name is Carissa Begonia. I am a business coach for BIPOC entrepreneurs, a LinkedIn expert and top voice. I am a second generation Filipino American daughter of immigrants and the first and only in my family to start my own business. And I really believe that entrepreneurship is the path to equity and that life design is liberation. And at Conscious Exchange, we're creating an ecosystem as well as a movement of BIPOC entrepreneurs with all the shared mission to achieve time, location, financial, and occupational freedom, not just for themselves, but for their families and their communities. So again, thank you all for joining Wisdom and Wellness, where my business besties, some that I brought here today, will share some both practical as well as mindset tips around some questions that we're typically asked when it comes to running a business. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, or you just want to say hi and just give us a shout out, give us some love, just let us know in the comments. All right. So here are my business besties. I would love for each of y'all to just do a little bit of an intro to yourselves. How do you, I like to not always lead with exactly what we do. So maybe just like something interesting about you, maybe a point, your favorite wellness practice, say, and then, of course, you're business owners, right? How you maybe support others.
I'll jump in and go first. That way I don't have to feel embarrassed by other people's wow factor and be like, oh no, I'm gonna have to top that. There's no topping stuff here.
No,
all
Dr.
amazing. So yes, I'm Dr. Kayzie Sutton. I think one of the things that I always like to lead with is that I'm a twin, and her name is Kayzie Sutton, and I believe that family is very important. I truly understand that not all of us have the greatest support systems with our family, but I'm blessed to have a great support system. So I always want to shout out my mom and my sister, just because I wouldn't be here without them. So one of my favorite wellness practices that I really encourage all my clients and now patients to do is to simply stop and like touch their foreheads and touch their diaphragm and just breathe and say, I love me. That's one of my favorite things to do, just to remind ourselves that somebody cares. Even if you feel like nobody cares, you care about yourself. And it just allows you to ground a little bit. Hi, Dr. Ryan Lewis. I see you there. I think that's what I'm gonna say for now, and then I'll add stuff as needed. But I'm surrounded by greatness, so thank you, ladies, for having me here.
Yeah.
All
right, who's next?
I'm going to add this to my practice, Dr. Kayzie Sutton, because I love that. I'm going to start saying I love myself. Hi, folks. Sara Furr, she, her pronouns. I am a first-gen Filipino-American, moved to the U.S. As a teenager. And my parents, at some point when I was younger, told me I could do anything, and I believed them. And so I have just taken steps to every time I thought I want to do this, I just did it. I did school for a really long time because I was good at it, or at least I thought I was good at it. And no more school for me anymore, because it also was challenging, very challenging for me. But I am one of the wellness practices that I do and love to do is plant my feet on the ground or lay on the ground. If I'm not in a place where laying on the ground makes sense, then planting my feet on the ground. But if I can lay on the ground, close my eyes, and just breathe. Sometimes just 5 deep breaths are what can help me just like come back to myself. Particularly if I'm getting frustrated. I do diversity, equity, inclusion work, and it is always frustrating to do that work. But sometimes I just need to do those 5 breaths. And if I will literally lay down on the floor in my office, only because I know who cleans my office and that the floor will be fine. But if I can't, just planting your feet, like relaxing my shoulders, 5 deep breaths is a practice for me.
I'm doing all these things as you guys are sharing.
Like I'm like,
taking that moment. As Dr. Kayzie, I'm gonna glow up the Dr. Kayzie because you should be celebrating that, and Dr. Sara as well. It's an honor. Thank you, Carissa, for bringing us all together. Thanks for everyone, whoever's tuning in, wherever you are around the world, for just taking the time to be with us. I believe the world would be a better place if we all danced more. So that's just like my starting off. Favorite wellness practice, absolutely movement. So whether that's like shaking your hands, going crazy, if you've been on a call with me, I'm a big shimmier. So if you aren't already, do a little shimmy in that heart space. But I truly believe I was put on this earth to help people come back home to their bodies in a way that feels safe and also in a way that feels balanced. And I specifically focus on incredible visionary spiritual women who come from usually traditionally like tech or finance backgrounds, but I've been, the people coming in to serve have just been all over. So I'm just honored that I get to do that and honored to be here. Thanks, Carissa and Sara and Dr. Kayzie.
Well, thanks everybody for sharing some of those practices because it's so important for us to incorporate this into our entrepreneurship work. And I don't know about you all, but I learned that the hard way. And there wasn't this emphasis of wellness before this year, really. And kind of, the journey for me was I landed in the hospital, not once, but twice, because I ignored signs. I ignored my, I let maybe even excitement take over. Oh my gosh, I got to get these things out there. I have all these wonderful things I want to do in the world. And sometimes I forgot, yeah, you need to sleep, right? You need to eat, things like that, right? And I know that I'm not alone in that experience. I am not that unique in that experience, but I don't know that how many people have taken it so far that they have like legit health concerns, right? Because of frankly capitalism and not paying attention to self, right? Despite your body telling you multiple times along the way. So, and I know just talking to all of you that there's maybe similar journeys or an emphasis, very intentional emphasis on well-being and wellness in your practices as entrepreneurs. And so I really wanted to help. Maybe that first question I have for all of you is to share what that, like, how did you land here? Is this something that has always been part of you? Have you also been kind of a, what's it called? Just a driver, like a just very like, let's go, go, go. I mean, you're getting a PhD, you're going to, you're a naturopathic doctor. Like, Kat you were running an incubator and accelerator programs for like entire city, like of Los Angeles. So it's like, you didn't have easy jobs, right? And I'm curious, did you start with this practice more inherently as part of yourselves? Or were you forced into it too? Did your body like tell you like, hi, we're gonna do something different here today? So whoever wants to chime in on that first, like what was the start of your wellness journey?
I feel pretty lucky. I was in higher ed for most of my career, and my first probably 10 years in higher education was go, go, go. It was constant. It was, you want to get every single experience you can. So you're going to do more. You're going to be on that committee. You're going to present at that conference. You were like, it was about like building your experience, building your credibility. And then I joined an office actually when I moved to Chicago, where like the lights would shut off at 5 p.m. and everyone was leaving. And I was like, oh crap, like what, I gotta go, right? And that was the start for me actually. So I feel really lucky that I landed in a space where I don't know what folks were going to do, but they had lives and they were going to do them. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna sit in the office like a nerd. Like I'm gonna go. But I found myself like sitting in my, getting home and thinking like, I don't know what else to do. And because I didn't have any other practices, I didn't have hobbies really. I think I just was so used to working so much. And so for me, that was like the start of realizing like I want to be more active. I struggled with like my own weight and weight loss and, you know, body stigma and fat phobia and all of that for a really long time, for pretty much my whole life. And realized that like, actually I don't want to feel limited. And so I started my own, like it started as an exercise movement for me, where it was like, I just need to learn how to run and how to do exercises. I joined a boot camp. And that was the start for me. And once I started doing that, realizing how good it felt to have control over my own, like at least my physical wellness, that's where it really started, from a physical wellness space. That I just kept going and kept doing that. And then I'll just add in that I originally did not get into the PhD program that I applied to. I only applied to one PhD program because I wanted to continue working and living in the city that I was living in. And so I only applied to the one program I was particularly interested in, and I didn't get in. And that's the first time I didn't succeed at a school thing in my life. And I was devastated. It was like my entire being. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I even in education? I couldn't get into this PhD program. It really, the impact on me was very disproportionate. And I had a supervisor who said, have you thought about going to therapy? Because I just don't think you should be this rocked to your core by not getting into a PhD program. It's a hard program to get into. They accept 4 students a year. Like, you should not feel this way. But my whole world was rough. It was like, what is my purpose on earth? And so I started therapy. And I've been with that same therapist as well. And that journey has been equally, if not more, important in shifting the way I think about physical movement and the way I think about like body size and all of that in my own physical health. And then I ended up studying social justice fatigue, particularly understanding how change agents experienced fatigue in these systems of larger systems of privilege and oppression, particularly in higher education when they're advocating for social change. So I said a lot, so I'm gonna hand it off. But all of that, I think that's my journey to where I am now. And now I just think that like rest and our health is like these systems are designed to break us down. They're designed to just keep us distracted and keep us hustling until we die, pretty much, so that we don't have energy to like create a different world. And so I just feel like protecting my health is an act of resistance I can take every single day.
I absolutely love that. I think I'm just going to borrow on what you said. My educational journey is definitely very different and unique. I grew up as an undiagnosed dyslexic and ADHDer. So going through school, it's interesting. I've always loved school for the social aspects, but it was traumatic because I would study long hours and still not be able to see the results of my study. And I don't know, my mom is phenomenal. She would always be like, you can do whatever you want to do. It may take you a little bit longer, but you can still accomplish it. And I think my sitting here today reminds me or allows me to just honor my mother in that I've done a lot of things that I set my mind to as little Kayzie. It's definitely taken a long time. Definitely felt burnout, definitely have needed to rest, definitely completely support taking a moment to do counseling. And I think every person should be in counseling at least once a year. You should go just talk to somebody that's not your friend, who's willing to just listen to you complain and potentially input just other questions for you to be like, oh, I didn't think of it like that. Because I think sometimes we're surrounded by people who love us, but they're also in the same kind of circle. So we sort of think similarly. I fell into naturopathic medicine because I got so sick. I originally was in broadcasting and then went into forensic psychology because I think a lot of us, when you're little, you always have one question that you want to ask people, or you're just pondering. For me, that question was, why do people do that? Like, why do you do that? So I went into psychology and communications so that I would learn how to ask questions more effectively, while at the same time understanding why people would respond or not respond, and just trying to sort of help shift behavior, because sometimes people get into these patterns and it's not where they want to be, but it's where they feel stuck. So I was doing all that work. I was a personal trainer. I was out advocating. I love being out in community. And then I got super sick to the point where I couldn't walk. I was having trouble remembering things. I was dizzy all the time. And I was asked to leave my job. Now, that was devastating because as most of us, people of color, we work very hard because we just need to so that we can appear or feel as if we're equal. So being asked to leave my job was very traumatic, but it did allow my body to sort of stop. So it sort of happened to me in terms of I had to stop. With that time, because I was off work for a good 2 years because of my illness, I realized how important it was to really stop, to take a look at how I was eating, what was I drinking, am I participating in things that really pour into me instead of just take away from me. After taking a moment, I realized I wanted to do that kind of work with people specifically. So I came back to school. I had to actually go all the way back to high school to get all my science credits because as I mentioned before, as a dyslexic with ADHD, some things were just very, very challenging, and my adult brain was definitely better capable of managing going through sciences. So I had to go all the way back to come forward, but I'm here now, so I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, I think that's what I'll say.
Dr. Kayzie, thank you for sharing your neurospiciness with the world. I mean, I believe we all are, but everyone's on different levels of neurospiciness, and how that impacts our day-to-day life is so different for everyone. Everyone's theme, I'm hearing the body, and how the body either paused us or stopped us. For my journey too, it was a series of moments, right? I don't think wellness was always in my life as a Filipino. I was an immigrant raised in Spokane, Washington, no diversity there. But my parents always brought me back to whenever we were sick, it was like massaging, Vicks. If those of you that know the Vicks, put Vicks all over your body. And I'm learning there's an Indian version
everything.
of Vicks on your hands, Vicks on everywhere that needs it. Cured everything. But growing up in Spokane, Washington, in the Filipino diaspora, did not like my skin color, did not like my eye color, so my relationship with my body was, I'm disconnected. I was completely disconnected. Little did I know, another series of moments of the body pausing in COVID was what really, I think, was the instigator for rebuilding my relationship with my body and wellness. I did not have boundaries energetically, emotionally, or physically when I was running a tech incubator and I was serving, 300, 400 entrepreneurs, BIPOC, and also had a team, a remote team of 40. And we were just doing all the things. Like Dr. Kayzie and Dr. Sara said, we just overachieve. There's that, being able to prove our worthiness or having to do extra to keep up with men or to keep up with the patriarchy or the colonization. So my body also during COVID, my dad ended up getting sick, which was an instigator for, I don't know, we had like 6 surgeries in a matter of between 3 of us. And so my surgery was a pelvic floor surgery. So that was actually representative of repressed sexual trauma that I had as a child. And so that whole journey for me is why I do the work, the series of moments of doing the work I do today and not having boundaries before when I was, serving everyone but myself and not taking care of it. And then our body just literally pausing me. So surgery led to, a very long pause of not doing anything down there at all. And everything hurt to go to the bathroom or to sleep or like to sit. And so being able to come back to doing like functional things in your body, right? Like Dr. Kayzie and Dr. Sarah of just like movement or, my therapy journey started a long time ago, but even then the definition of wisdom and wellness and has changed, right? In my own personal story. And I'm sure it's changed for all of us as well. So truly it's like as little as like taking a breath or like lying on the ground or wiggling your toes. But, it can be as big as doing therapy and EMDR and really like sitting with your grief and sitting with feelings and sadness and anger and rage, which is all welcome because we don't talk about that enough as women. The emotions that come through, right, on the wellness journey and the pressures and the things that, that just come up as being women and melanin women in this world we live in. So, and shouting out Betty and Velma in the chat. I saw them there. So, hey, beautifuls.
Thanks everyone for sharing just vulnerably like what brought you here, and or what's the struggles, right? I think there's a bigger story behind maybe why we choose to do what we choose to do, and not all of us are aware of those stories or have looked at those stories in the face and start to be able to say it out loud, to ourselves, to our loved ones, or and even publicly on social media. So I appreciate you for doing the self work that it takes to show up on something like this and actually share it. Like, yeah, I've experienced some traumas. I experienced some mental health kind of like issues and things like that. Whatever. What I'd love to hear a little bit more about too was, y'all are like wellness practitioners now, and when as you were kind of learning your modalities and getting into your practices, what was the challenge, right? Like learning something new is hard, period. And so, and when generally in society, we're not taught to pause, we're told go, like run. And so when a lot of you mentioned the long pauses, we couldn't do things that you loved to do, wanted to do, used to do, right? And so in the learnings, right, what was one of your challenges of adapting this maybe new way of being, new lifestyle, etc.?
That's an easy one really quickly for me. It's just disassociation and disconnection. So I would go back to my protective and coping mechanisms on the journey of learning movement or like, it was actually very scary when I first learned meditation. I never wanted to connect with my breath because I didn't realize that it was like being in your body is really actually quite triggering. And if you have any kind of, we all experience trauma on different levels, but if you have, depending on your background and how you're raised, and if you had kind of emotional instability growing up, being in your body is very scary. So I learned to disassociate and disconnect when I was 5 and when the sexual abuse started. So coming back to these movements and like being in my body practices was such a like really had to mind, emotionally, physically, spiritually be like, I'm safe, I'm here in this moment, I'm here with 4 amazing women on LinkedIn, the sun is out, like being back in my senses to bring me back to right here right now versus taking me back to when I had complex PTSD things. So I would say that's fine.
I think for me, one of the things that I continue to learn and try to unlearn, when I started like the physical, particularly physical wellness journey, I lost a ton of weight. Just going from doing nothing to doing something, just all of it just sort of happened for me. And then I got more in tune to, what do I eat and all of that. And it was all from a very normative way of understanding like weight loss. It was very much from like a weight loss perspective. And I think someone asked me at one point, like, well, what would you keep doing this if you weren't if you weren't losing weight? Like, what if this is just what your body is? This is your body's happy weight. Like, there's not some goal to be striving for. I don't need to lose another 20 pounds or another 50 pounds or whatnot. And I was like, what? There was such a disconnect in my brain. Like, no, that's always what's going to happen. That's always part of the goal, or always what's going to happen. And realizing that, like, that's very like normative, hegemonic way of thinking about beauty and worth, and like all the shit I had tied up in my own like fat phobia and shit that I was carrying. I'm sorry, should I not say shit on LinkedIn? But like all of that I was just carrying around, and it still comes up. I'm just getting back to a physical like what the movement routine that is that I'm able to do, because I had a hip replacement earlier this year, and it's still really hard to sort of feel like I mentally in my body I know that like focusing on weight loss is like not the thing. That is not health. That is not, I know all of that, but sometimes like those still creep into my brain, and I still think like, would this run feel different if I were carrying less weight or whatnot? And so that is something that I think I'm constantly, because I am so active and I love being active, I'm constantly also thinking about like body weight and fatness and how is that influencing my ability to do things. And that continues to come up for me. So.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable. I appreciate both of y'all for sharing so vulnerably and transparently. That's allowing me to share, I think, more than I typically would share in a experience like this. Some of the hardest pieces for me as it relates to starting or being in the practice is understanding that I'm truly fearfully and wonderfully made. I am a Christian. I believe in God, and I believe that we all have opportunity to get connected to the Creator. However you define them is absolutely fine. Growing up in my body in the 80s, it was very hard to be a dark-skinned Black person. It was very traumatizing to never see anything that looked like me until Oprah Winfrey. And I mean, how do you go from not seeing anything to really identifying with Oprah? There's a gap. Like, I don't know how she did it, but I'm Canadian, so that's never going to happen. It's sort of where it went for me. But truly, I think my wellness journey started with my mom and with prayer and understanding that slowing down is very uncomfortable. It is not comfortable, especially as a woman or as somebody who's a bit type A, to slow down. So for me, the hardest part has truly been slowing down and being mindful of the moments that I'm in, being mindful of what stillness is. I think the biggest challenge, Sarah, similar to what you were saying, is we grew up with these identities or identities that were placed on us or that we created and sort of believed about ourselves. And slowing down allowed me to sort of peel back. Is that true? Is this who I really want to be? Can I be different? Does health really look like this skinny, blonde-haired, blue-eyed person? Maybe.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that that could never be health for me. That is just an experience that I could never achieve. So the redefining health and shifting my beliefs around health and wellness and stillness and why it's okay to rest was huge. The other big piece as a neurodivergent person is understanding that while my brain is different, I'm still good enough to be at any table. And and it was very challenging to slow down in school, like in naturopathic medical school. You can't make it like, for me, there was no way I could make it without taking the program much longer, without realizing that for me to study a science, it's going to take me probably 4 to 5, sometimes 10 times longer to do that work. And it was okay. I think becoming comfortable with sitting in the discomfort of feeling this is not okay was where the work was for me. So meditation and prayer is the work that I do daily, moment by moment, simply because coming up to the traumas of the past in terms of how I identified and looked at myself and my abilities and skills and all of those things, it was very challenging. So yeah, I think that's what I would say. Slowing down in terms of, does that question or does that thought that I have running around in my brain really make sense? And is it true? And is it true because I can prove it, or is it true because I feel it? I think understanding how to connect the mind, the body, and all those things are very important.
Oh, y'all, you have brought so many juicy points up that I could hold a whole segment on, on, emotions pausing introspection, because we don't do it typically, right? That's in my emotional intelligence training. Like, we are not doing that, like, and it's so critical to assess, is that real? Is that just the normative, like, kind of narrative, or, and who cares if it takes me longer? I'm doing it. Like, how many people actually go through medical school or like become a doctor, like whatever, right? And it's still hard because society tells us you're too slow. You're too fat, right? You're not good enough. And so many things, even talking about body image and such. And I think about the impact that's had on me too, as a curvier, like, Asian woman, who does not look like, everyone on the Crazy Rich Asians, like, cast, how, like, that still messes with you, right? Like, who am I to be on this stage and talking about this, or being on social media and leading this conversation, all the things. So other segments, I would love to start to hear more about, because you are, as you're talking, I'm like, I truly believe that everyone I work with are pioneers. I do not see myself doing this thing in this role, offering this service. Or if I do, I can name them on my hands who I know also does something even remotely similar to what I am doing. And that means it's just not enough. Right. And so super proud of to know you all for being that pioneer, which makes it extra hard. Right. It's one thing if, hey, I have to combat these societal expectations in general, but now as a person of person of color, I'm like, and no one else is doing it. So like, I got to figure that out, how to be okay. Like you said, Dr. Kayzie, the gap between Oprah and myself, right? Like, so I would love for you to share a little bit about the modalities and the specialties you've all chosen. And like, why have you chosen that particular, practice? And maybe also, what's like the biggest nugget, the biggest like learning you have, say, Dr. Sara, on your work, your body of work, and social justice fatigue? Like, what was like the big thing that you discovered in that work, right? Dr. Kayzie, like, in your specialty, working with folks with diabetes and hypertension and such, like, what's the big thing there that's like this is why I work with you, and how, and what you need to know, right? What we might not realize. A lot of us might just think this is life. This is just, I have lived like this like forever. And same thing with you too, Kat. Like, in your specialty and embodiment, I used to laugh and about all this dancing movement stuff that embodiment practitioners did, and so much more. I'm realizing it's not just processing things in here. Sometimes that's not enough, and you need to release and move things through your body. And so I respect that body of work so much more now, because I start to see myself and also my clients be like, I'm overthinking the thing. It's not a lack of thinking about it. It's a lack of letting it flow, right? So would love to just hear about your specialties and that aha moment, or the big lessons or learnings that you really want to share with the audience.
I'll jump in.
I was like, go ahead, go do it.
Okay, I'll go first. So as I mentioned earlier, I got super sick in my late 20s, and nothing was making sense. I went to the doctors, did a lot of medications, did a lot of testing, and nothing was coming back. So as a faith person, I had to be like, okay, what is God trying to tell me here? If there's nothing, in quotes, happening, we did find a diagnosis and all those things, but that wasn't the point. The point was my body was not working for me. And my question, why do you do what you do? Like, that is the question. So I was like, body, why do you do what you do? Why is this happening now? What can I do differently? Should I be doing something differently? Is this my faith in life? Am I gonna die? Like, all those things come up because it got dark. I got into some really dark places. And sometimes the questions you ask yourself in dark places can be helpful, but they can also be very harmful. I'm blessed again because I have family and friends that really supported me through the dark times. But the question kept coming up, why do I do what I do? And around the time when I was super ill, some of my family members were dying of complications to lifestyle diseases. And I'm just like, we shouldn't be going out like this. We work too hard for too long. We've been stressed out for too much, and we shouldn't be dying at the ages we're dying at. We shouldn't be having to deal with the symptoms we're dealing with. And I was just too concerned with looking out into the diaspora and recognizing our lives is what's killing us. And if there was a way for us to shift how we're living, we potentially could plug back into life. We could enjoy our lives, and we could live longer and participate in others' lives and help encourage and boost and support other people. So getting ill was like a reminder to myself that while I'm healthy, my body may not be healthy because of the way I'm thinking, because of the way I'm eating, because of just the sheer living wild Blackness. Like, it is hard being in predominantly white spaces, constantly looking out and being mindful of microaggressions or just overt things, and having to stuff that down because you don't want to be that angry Black woman. I realized the importance of it's okay to show up authentically. And I work with people like lifestyle disease is my thing, as well as neurodivergence, because I think we're beautiful people and we don't hear that enough. I work with these populations simply because I've found that not a lot of practitioners come to people with diabetes, come to people with high blood pressure, come to people with neurodivergent issues with compassion and with support, like really trying to help the person plug back into their lives and not just change who they are so they can fit into this cookie box of whatever is defined. I also realized that people like me need people like me, because avocado toast, while tasty, is not a part of my ethnic background. And if I'm going to be working with people who are eating certain ways and doing certain things because of culture, and our culture matters, I need to be able to shift and help people understand that maybe we can do or cook things a little differently. Maybe we can have different rituals around food, but allowing for you to show up culturally relevant and still shift your medical diagnosis. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Dr. Kayzie, thank you for being you.
Amen, amen.
Carissa, thank you for this question. Alec throwing in gems in the chat there. Grandmother's hands, speaking of generational trauma and cultural, all of the intersections. The embodiment work that I do is, I mean, you guys heard my story on, connecting and loving on our bodies in a whole new way and feeling deeper. I haven't always been a dancer. I didn't grow up dancing, but I fell in love when I did Peace Corps. So instead of academia, I left country and did Peace Corps in Nicaragua, essentially, and taught entrepreneurship and was a small business advisor there. So I was advising women, third grade education, running businesses out of necessity. And I was also teaching high schoolers and middle schoolers, and mainly with teachers, like train the trainer model. But there, it was interesting to see like the difference between Nicaraguan culture and American culture, and how in Western culture, there's this like worthiness. We're not whole. We're not worthy. And that doesn't exist in other countries. It exists in different ways, or in my mindfulness journey, I learned that, there's some monks that are like, what are you guys talking about worthiness? Like, what is this worthiness and wholeness thing that these Americans are struggling with? But the embodiment piece is so, oh my gosh, there's just so many different embodiment practices, right? Like I actually wanted to invite us all to take an inhale because we're hearing each other's stories. Can we actually take an inhale real quick? Everyone listening, all of us together. And exhale out. As we're moving energy. My work it's energy in motion. Everything that we're feeling, the thousands of thoughts. I think the neuroscientists say we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And I, like myself too, have to ask myself, is that thought, is that belief, is that word that carries an energy and a resonance, is that true? And just because I feel it so strongly somatically in my body, like tension or like heat or pain or whatever, is that true for me in this moment? And bringing people back to, especially women who usually are like myself in the past, have go, go, go. Stillness is not a thing. Um, Slowness is not a thing. So having to learn the value and the power of stillness and the slowdown, and honoring that, whether that's through movement and somatic movement is, if you don't know somatic movement, heard of it, I'm learning a lot about where that comes from and the colonization of somatics. But um, it's a lot of like shaking and holding and like little gentle things that just bring you back to, and animals, like you see your dogs, if you have dogs or cats, like they shake sometimes when they meet each other, or they shake out of fear, they shake out of, like that's such a normal thing. And as humans, we also need to just shake sometimes because that's really overwhelming to hear or to like witness or to experience. Um, and the women that I've coached and work one-on-one with usually are really high performing women who are what I would call, and myself included, we're disconnected from our feminine, our lunar, our yin side, which is our slowness, our stillness, our trusting side, and really want to embody and embrace that part of us that is in all of us, regardless of gender, that like feminine, that lunar and yin side. So I like to call it lunar because it's very genderized. When we say feminine, masculine, people automatically assume gender. And I like to say lunar and solar because it's like when you think of the moon and the sun, the qualities that it brings up in us of like shining and unapologetic. And then the lunar is like going inward and being like still and quiet. And both are playful, right? Like the solar and lunar are both playful. So how do you embody that on a day to day versus just saying it or just talking about it? How are you actually practicing it in life, in love, in the bedroom, in the boardroom, like all the things? So yeah, I think I'll pause there. Dr. Sara.
It's so much. I'm like just soaking it all in. But for me, when I started on my own sort of research journey, really was me search. In higher ed, in higher education, there is it's people dominantly want to study students and they want to study faculty, and they don't care about staff members, right? Staff are the folks who are helping make sure like these colleges and universities run, but they aren't paid very well. They're asked to do more with less all the time. And then we don't even sort of study and or understand the experiences of folks who are quite literally on the day-to-day, like helping support students who hold marginalized identities, often helping to support other staff with marginalized identities, like creating those affinity spaces for people to sort of move through and survive. And it was this, there sort of was just always this element of survival. And I think for me, because I had started my wellness journey earlier in my sort of career, I wasn't just surviving. I felt myself thriving and moving toward thriving. And I had some good boundaries, and people were like, well, how do you set those boundaries? And so that's what really sparked a lot of my research and why I did research social justice fatigue. There was a lot of theory and work done around, compassion fatigue, racial battle fatigue, lots of the understanding of burnout. These are all like theoretical concepts that exist and have been studied and all of that, but none of them quite got to what I was thinking about and experiencing, particularly the intersection of marginalized identities, being an agent of an institution while also trying to change that institution. So this very particular intersection. And so that's why I studied and ended up with social justice fatigue, because I wanted it much more expansive than just sort of race or racism, right? It is also gender, it is also sexuality, it is all the things, right? Ability status, social class, all of that, and all of those identities show up in particularly in higher education, since that's where I was working. And the thing that was I guess the biggest nuggets, one is that it's not if social justice fatigue will happen, it's when and to what extent. What we learned is that it is not if, If is not even in there. When and to what extent are you going to experience it? And so part of the work we did together in my study was participatory action oriented, quasi-experimental. I did a lot of things that are not normed and not usually okay, particularly in education. But we took a journey together. We spent 30 days and I took all the research and kind of came up with 5 activities that I was asking everybody to do for 30 days together in community with one another. What I found at the end, though, is that there are actually 3 things that if you can put these in your regular wellness plan on a regular basis, daily if possible, but if you shift a little, that's fine. The 3 things that have the greatest impact on overall wellness, and that's overall wellness, so physical wellness. We looked at health metrics, so high blood pressure and all of that as well as mental health and mental health wellness was if you were to do 10 minutes of reflection a day, and that reflection could look however you want. You could be writing it. Some folks actually recorded voice notes to themselves. You had to do it actively, and you had to be recording in some way. You don't have to write in a journal if you don't like to write in a journal, but some way that you were sort of collecting those thoughts and reflecting. It could be meditation too. And so 10 minutes of reflection, 30 minutes of movement, very specifically movement. It does not have to be exercise, and it doesn't have to be done at the same time. You could do 5 minutes, and then you could do 10 minutes. And then if you've got 30 minutes, it's the intentionality around saying, you know what, I'm going to take a longer route. I'm going to park further away from this store so that I get 5 minutes extra walk. It's more about the intentionality of that movement than it having to be at the same time. It doesn't have to be all 30 minutes. But if you did that, 30 minutes of movement a day, and then 20 minutes devoted to your own personal development. And that could be listening to a podcast. It could be reading a book. It could be playing an instrument, if that's part of what you do. It could be dancing or like a focused learning a dance or whatnot. So it could be painting. It is whatever. It is a creative element that helps you express yourself and brings you joy. That's the definition of personal development that we used. All of that stuff takes 1 hour a day. And if you can't give yourself 1 hour a day, that was also a realization for me too at times, because there are times where certainly I don't give myself an hour a day, but realizing that all of those things had a significant impact on everyone's overall wellness in the study is really where I continue to focus my work on, is how to ensure that folks are giving themselves at least 1 hour a day, particularly folks of color or folks who hold marginalized identities, but definitely something that we can't really prevent social justice fatigue, I don't think, particularly folks who are in doing change work, but you can mediate the severity of experiencing that fatigue.
Whoa, thanks, Dr. Sara, for that, because now this doesn't look so bad. Like 10 minutes of this, 30 minutes of that, 20 minutes of that. But you're right, it is hard because we do 1 hour. That actually does add up to an hour. And nope, like when was the last time I did anything for that? So I appreciate you quantifying a little bit how we can actually this is doable, y'all. This is doable. And to clarify, it's all 3, not just 1. It's all 3.
It is the impact of all 3, yes. Any of them singularly will absolutely have a positive impact, but the combination of those 3 in particular have the most positive impact.
Sarah, I love this. I love that it's like a reflection, because that's very meditative to reflect back. Mm-hmm. And there's a movement. And then when I heard you say personal development, I heard expression. So expressing yourself in some shape or form, right? Whether you're learning or painting or something. I love that. Can I add, Krista, something else that I think would be really it's coming up right now intuitively, and I feel like I should share it. Energetic boundaries. So especially us that are purpose and mission driven and working and serving, how can you, in a moment or in conversation with someone, like say, any energy that I'm feeling, anything that I'm feeling through my body goes back out to source. And I sometimes say transmuted back into love, whatever you want to say, whatever feels good. I'm a very visual person. So sometimes I'll also energetically, if I'm in a conversation with someone, I need to pretend like I have angel wings around me that are protecting me, or that I have like a bubble that's energetically. So I'm not absorbing when I'm in service to others, absorbing everyone else and everything around me. I'm very empathic and intuitive. So learning these like very quick things in conversation, or just like asking yourself, like, they're like, does my body need water right now? Do I need to eat? Because I know this whole crew has gone whole days, myself included, where we probably didn't eat or drink something because we're like changing the world, you know. There's the, like all the things, whatever stories we have in our head of what we were taught and how we can like show up in the world. But it's the energetic one that was also a really big, powerful one that takes seconds. Like, I choose to feel only my feelings. Like, that was a really powerful phrase for me. I choose to feel only my feelings. Or, you know, if I felt negativity around me, it was just like, anything I'm feeling that is not mine is not welcome in my space, period. Anything that is not love is not welcome in my physical, mental, emotional space. And that can creep up and look so different, like in thoughts and, you know. So I just had to throw that out there because I love this reflection movement and expression and the research behind it.
Well, y'all, thank you so much for spending time with me. We're about to wrap up here for the day. I know there's so many things we haven't used. We can still go in this conversation. So maybe, you know, more parts to it. But, you know, these practical tips that you all have been dropping, like taking an hour to do these 3 different things, protecting your energetic boundaries, eat your cultural food, God damn it. Like,
without shame, without shame.
No shame.
I love these tips. And as we wrap up, would love for you just to each of you to share, you know, how can people continue to work with you? What do you do? How can people continue to connect with you, potentially work with you? Are there any offers and such that you're particularly sharing right now? And if you do have, like, you know, another like one as people are on their, maybe the beginnings of their journeys, especially, right? Because I think this is, a lot of this feels like this is not our norm, right? Wellness and centering our well-being is not, we're early stage adopters right now, right? If you could also drop, like, what is one thing, one tip to help you shift into making this actually something you prioritize?
I'll say the thing that I work most with is, we have all this knowledge and we know it, but accountability is the piece that I'm able to offer folks that I work with, whether in group coaching or in one-on-one coaching. I also do some other things organizationally, but that's the space where I get the most energy, is really helping folks figure out what is blocking you. What is the thing? Is it a mindset? Is it actually putting things on your calendar, right? What is the thing that is preventing you from doing the things that we know like gives us life, that is helping us live, that is, I'm still like holding on to something Kayzie said, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all the things. What is preventing us from doing that, right? And is it a resource thing? Whatever that is. So accountability is, and creating space to interrogate whatever norms might be informing us. That's the work that I do. I'm doing another webinar at the end of this month on October 27th. It's a Friday, and at 11:30 Central. So, or 11 Central, I think it's 11 Central. So let's get my time. I'm gonna mess up time zones probably for forever. But yeah, so I'm doing another one for folks to get a little bit more, do a self-assessment, understanding where are you right now. You might be great in movement, and it's reflection and expression. Man, Kat, I'm stealing that. I will give you credit for what I'm stealing here. It's the reflection and expression maybe that you haven't given yourself space to explore, or vice versa. And it doesn't have to be all things at once. Yes, we know that the impact of all of the things together are what can be super beneficial, but start with what feels doable right now. If it's the reflection, do it. 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 10 minutes right away. Maybe it's 3 minutes. So yeah, that's how folks can work with me. I'm going to be dropping a link on my LinkedIn about the webinar at the end of the month, so you can register and join, and get a better understanding of where you are in your own space.
Yeah, and y'all can drop your links in the comments too on this event, so people have them.
Okay.
Dr. Kayzie, do you want to go, or do you want me to go first?
I think I'll let you go first.
So the work that I'm doing right now that's giving me a lot of life is my one-on-one coaching that I'm working specifically with women, and very like women in leadership, women running companies, women running teams, and women who are wanting to really embody well-being and like a balanced, like really practice it day to day, because you're taking care of your family, your kids, your team, your business. Like it's, how do you come? It's very life-giving. And at the same time, what's funny, Chris, I was telling you, I just did a self-love class for 6-year-old to 18-year-olds. And that was just a whole nother beautiful experience as well. So like, being able to, I do speak and I do coach. I used to speak a lot more pre-COVID, and being able to speak on the wellness and embodiment piece is, I think, that's juicing me up as well, and what that looks like in practice, whether for any ages, and also entrepreneurs. I've been working with them since 2008, so that's an easy and fun avenue for me, an audience for me. But when I think about the one thing, let's see, my call to action for everyone, if you're still tuning in, if you're watching this after, what is one thing that you can do today that is nourishing, loving, kind to your body? Whether it's telling it I love you, or saying thank you, or holding it for a moment, or just looking in the mirror, or making sure to drink 3 bottles of water, or, whatever that is, like one kind, nourishing, loving thing for your body, because it is breathing and moving and detoxing and allowing you to be you and share your love and hug your loved ones and move. Like, it is doing so much for us, and also carrying the stories of our ancestors and their dreams. Like, it is, our bodies are just powerful, magical vessels that are meant to shine. So what's just one thing you can do for yourself and your body that's loving?
I think I'm gonna add some humor to this moment, but it's like health related. Some things that I think us as women should do is not hold our pee. Sometimes as we're drinking our 3 bottles of water, or we're drinking our tea or our coffee to just make it through, we have a lot of stuff going on down there, and it's important stuff. So let us be healthy and pee when you need to, instead of constantly holding it in, because we do that. We'll be like, oh, I'll go later. I'm going to encourage everyone. The one thing you should do is go pee. That's and that's because releasing stuff is important. That is because holding in toxins is not all that healthy, and that's because it's an internal kind of stress that you're going to be building up throughout the time you're holding. It's just like, instead of having your shoulders up here, your uterus is just squished, your bladder is squished. It's just like we consciously put down our shoulders. Let's consciously relax our bladders. So, just humor, but facts and truth we should all do. You should do it too. But speaking to us later. I think one of the things that I offer people is an opportunity to show up authentically, an opportunity to ask silly questions, and an opportunity to see someone who is a doctor be real. Like, I struggle as well. I do know the things. I still need accountability, but I love helping people go from where they are to where they want to be. I guess my call to action is getting you from where you are to being here I am. So showing up here instead of being told this is who you are. No, this is who I am. That's sort of what I help people do. And reminding people that they are not their diagnosis. We all have many diagnoses, and we are all so much more than diabetes. We're so much more than dyslexics. We're so much more than disabled. We're so much more. And just helping people remember that regardless of what society or even they tell themselves, that may or may not be true, but let's believe that we are so much more. That's what I think I offer people.
Thank you all for the mic drops, all the nuggets, all the juicy nuggets. So many great moments, and for having vulnerable conversation, because these are things that we do not talk about. Adding humor, like peeing. I've been there. Hold it, hold it, and I even think about how the scrunching of the shoulders is like the same thing what's going on down there. So just thanks for all the moments, y'all, and for just being honest and real. And that's really what I really appreciate and want to surround myself with, are people who are just say it like it's true. Like these are the real things that are going on. Let's not hide what's really actually happening. And that's why I'm so honored to have you all in my world, because of that truth, because of how real you all show up, authentically show up, because that's really what we need. And representing so that people who look like us can feel comfortable to ask the stupid questions or the silly questions or the funny ones, and not feel judged, not feel like, oh my God, show up as you are. And I just appreciate you all for that. So, like you said, we'll have everyone drop their links and how you can work with Kat or Dr. Sara or Dr. Kayzie into the chat. So definitely look them up. Like, follow them on LinkedIn, because they're dropping all this goodness all day long. And as for me, I run this show once a week because there's so many like great people to highlight, to talk, like topics to have to chat about. And it really brings me joy to be able to do that. So if you are looking to, one, please just continue to join and share this with your friends. Wisdom and Wellness. I'm doing them on Wednesdays right now. And also I am a coach. I'm a business coach specifically for BIPOC entrepreneurs. Part of what I do is help bring people to be comfortable with coming on to a live stream. This was not my natural thing. Hosting conversations like this was not my natural thing. And so much for me is about sharing that experience and making more comfortable for others, so that they can go off and do this on their own, right? Go do their speaking engagements, become podcast hosts, etc. And so if that is something interesting to you, to learn how to get some handholding in building your business, showing up online, having conversations that you really want to have, being yourself in your business, I would love to help you. Right now, you can get on the wait list for my Leap to Liberation program. I also have different offerings that are coming up in the next couple of months, this month and in November, December, that might be really awesome for you. One of them is more of a community experience. So if you're interested in learning more about those programs, just definitely follow me on LinkedIn, or you can join my email list on consciousnessstudios.com. All right. But again, thank you so much for Kat, Dr. Sara, Dr. Kayzie for joining me today, for all of you in the audience for just listening and participating in the conversation, for supporting all of us and showing up and continuous to cheer us on as well. And we'll see you next time. Happy Wednesday.
Thank you, Carissa.
Bye.
Thank you, Carissa.
Dr. Kayzie, Dr. Sara, 2 women with doctors on the call. I don't know, statistically, that's pretty rare.
Love it. All right, bye. Bye, y'all.
Bye.